Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to call the Montclair City Council meeting to order. And again, I'd like to welcome everybody to the council chambers. And as we do, we'll begin the meeting with the invocation and also the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll let the city clerk announce those two individuals.
Tonight's invocation will be led by Ezekiel and Maitrik Patel of the Nityananda Vedic Temple, and the pledge will be led by Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. Feel free to come over here to the podium, and we'll all stand.
First, I would like to thank everybody. Thank you to the mayor and to the city councils. We wish for the city to keep flourishing and for the most auspicious things to happen for everybody. Nityanandam Paramasukadham Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Bhivamalachalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Satgurum Tam Namami. Om Nityananda Paramashivoham. Thank you, everyone. And we wish to invite you to our 19th, on December 19th, Jayanti. It's a celebration to celebrate our Guru. It happens every year. It's one of the most auspicious happenings for us, and I don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys coming here today. And obviously, the temple has also had a significant anniversary here recently, so we wanted to remember your temple and give them a great celebration of the anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
We join in saying the pledge to our great flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have roll call.
Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez. Here. Councilmember Johnson.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rue. Present. Mayor Dutre.
Present.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the council on items that are not on the agenda, or if they wish to speak on a consent calendar or business item. You'll be provided 5 minutes to speak. If you wish to speak on Zoom, you just hit the raise hand function. If you're on the phone, please dial *9. And if you're in the audience, please complete a speaking card. And due to the Brown Act, the City Council prohibited to discuss any item that's not on the agenda. And at this time, I'm going to ask the City Clerk if she has any speakers.
All right, first on Zoom, we have Ruby Long from County Supervisor Kurt Hagman's office.
Hello, Ruby.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just wanted to announce that we are having our yearly Christmas open house. We're really excited about it. It will be Thursday, December 8th from 5:30 to 7:30. It's going to be held at the City Hall in Chino Hills, and that's 14,000 City Center Drive in Chino Hills. We are asking that you please RSVP at supervisorhagman.eventbrite.com, just so we can get an idea for head count for food and beverages. But Santa Claus is normally always there, and we have a great time with all of our residents. So hopefully we see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Sofia Siqueiros from Congresswoman Norma Torres' office.
Hello, Sophia. Nice seeing you again.
Hello.
Welcome
Good
to the
evening.
Council Chambers of Montclair.
Good evening, Mayor Dutre, council members, city staff, and community members. As the city clerk said, my name is Sofia Siqueiros, and I'm here on behalf of Congresswoman Norma Torres as a field representative, and to alert the Montclair city staff and community members about 2 federal grant programs that are currently open to cities through the bipartisan infrastructure law, which Congresswoman Norma Torres helped pass. First, the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling Grant Program, which totals about $40 million. This grant opportunity can be used to fund projects improving the management of post-consumer materials that can be reused, recycled, repaired, or composted throughout the city. And the second grant opportunity is the Recycling Education and Outreach Grant Program, which totals $30 million. And this grant opportunity can be used for public education and outreach concerning waste prevention, recycling, and composting. Please do not hesitate to reach out to our office if you have any questions or to use me as a resource. Thank you again for your time.
Great, thank you. Again, welcome aboard to Montclair as one of your new assignments for Congressman Torres.
Okay, and then we have Bruce Culp raising his hand on Zoom.
And Bruce Culp. Looks like Bruce is there. Hello, Bruce.
Hello, can you guys hear me? I'm calling from Washington, D.C. today.
Lobbying for us?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
gonna
good.
get that gold line moving one way or the other.
All right.
Just would like to congratulate Mayor Dutray, City Council Member Carissa Martinez, and Council Member Bill Rue on their recent victories in the last local election. Thank you guys for representing us time and time again. Don't always agree with everybody, but I really appreciate the work that you guys do time and time again, making the city a better place, and I really appreciate all the efforts you guys put into place. And that's all I have now. I'll be talking during the public, the next item. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will stop that there. Any other speakers, Andrea?
Okay. So we have Leticia Rodriguez.
Okay, hello, Leticia.
Evening, Mayor Dutray and council members. Thank you for having me here. I'm a Montclair resident. I've been for over 20-something years, and I'm really concerned because I live off of Fremont and San Bernardino, and we have accidents galore in that corner, and I know cameras were installed and everything, but now cameras were installed on Fremont from the city up, and they stop like one light before getting to the corner. This week, a lady was ran over there. It was not nice to see. As a neighbor, I walk through the streets every day. I walk my dogs. I walk my kids. We walk. We try to walk because we have everything so close. So I'm asking if those LED lights can be installed in the corner of Fremont and San Bernardino. We still have those old yellow lights, and they don't have very good visual. Mind you, the lady was wearing black, but it was scary to watch. I've seen a lot of accidents there, never somebody to get ran over there. It wasn't nice to see or to experience. Also, I'm still asking for somebody to, I know you guys don't live in that area, but I do, and I've lived there for over 20 years, and I would like to ask for those permits for parking off of Fremont all the way to, from San Bernardino, Fremont, all the way to Benito. And I don't mind having the condos being part of the permits because they live there too and they own homes. But we have a lot of apartment people that park there and they leave their cars there overnight and we can't even take out our trash. You know, we have to, and then if we take out our trash a night before or 2 nights before, we can get, you know, a ticket for doing that, or we won't get our trash picked up on Wednesdays. So I've brought this up before, I've got signatures, and it's always a no. But I think, you know, something needs to be done. It's not fair that us that own the condos and the homes are struggling with parking.
Okay, you're saying that the cars are parked there not from the condos at all?
No.
They're probably either coming from
There's
the...
condo cars, but we
Yeah.
have an understanding, and they know that you know, they know when trash comes, and they always respect. We don't have problems with the condo people. We have problems with the apartment people.
Okay,
So just giving you a heads up, and
All
thank
right,
you for
thank you.
listening to me. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
And I apologize for what you had to go through and the incident that took place.
Yes,
So
that
staff will
wasn't
look
nice to
into
see.
that, the lights, and then I will suggest Monica is in the back there, and she can explain to you the process about the permit and what you need to go through. So perhaps the resolution you come up with, the condo association also get a permit, that might be a resolution to
Yeah.
satisfy both sides, but
Yeah, because it'll
I'll
help
suggest,
all of us.
yeah, talk to Monica. to
Thank
let
you very
know.
much. Have a good evening,
right,
everybody.
thank you. Bye-bye.
And congratulations on all of you that got reelected.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, real quick question, not to belabor the point and violate the Brown Act, but Mr. City Manager, are the streets near that area, the like Rosewood and all that, do they have permit parking currently?
I don't recall that there are any streets in that particular area around Fremont and, well, between, I take it back. North of San Bernardino, on the west side of Fremont, on the east side of Fremont, there is permit parking, yes.
All right, I was just curious.
Okay. Any others? I think we have another speaker, if
Yes.
I'm correct, but go ahead.
Yes, actually, I did receive a request in advance from Carolyn Raff to speak after Leticia.
Okay.
So,
Then-
if she's available on Zoom, I've unmuted her, or allowed her to unmute her mic. Are you there, Carolyn?
There she
Yes,
is.
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead,
Oh,
Caroline.
Okay, thank you. First of all, congratulations to you guys that did get reelected. And I wanted to speak after Miss Leticia Martinez or Rodriguez, because I have talked to her before, and on two things that she mentioned. Number one is about the lighting. I know probably on some areas the lighting does need to be redone or recorrected, because I know there's been times I left the city when I was at a meeting at the council, and especially people, unfortunately, they don't realize when they're wearing dark clothing that they cannot be seen, but I have almost had near accidents myself. So it would be nice for you guys to look in the lighting on that area. But she mentioned where there was an accident and someone got hit. Secondly, I know that when I was on the traffic committee, there was a petition that everyone signed on Fremont to have no parking without permit because of the parking situation. So, and if she has to go through that, and eventually, I recommended that it go to the council, which never happened. They did make extra parking spaces, but I have been up and down that area so many times, it does not seem to be working. So I know I've been there to my son's house, which is up the street, and sometimes you can't find anywhere to park. So, and I just have to make sure that I get in to park in his driveway, because even if I'm just going to run in and out and it's a hassle when everybody's parked on that street to even try and back out on the street, because you cannot see, it's blind. And secondly, if you guys are recommending her to get signatures, you might check with her and see if the ones that originally were done might actually benefit what they did before as far as the parking. So once again, I would like to congratulate all you guys and wish you all a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, and then we do have Xavier Mendez.
Okay, Xavier, come on down.
All right, 5 minutes, perfect. First off, just want to congratulate everyone on their reelection. Carissa, Bill, John. I sent everybody texts. Maybe I don't have your right number. I sent you a text also, Bill, to say thank you. I really appreciate that. So first off, I know that you guys will all continue to provide serious consideration on all city issues and concerns that affect the community and its visitors. If I had been fortunate to obtain one of the seats on the council, I would have wanted to work on improving many facets of this great city. I offer my wisdom and ideas to all of you on the council and would make time to share concerns and comments that I had received while knocking on doors throughout the community. So if anybody wants to talk to me about what I experienced, I would love to. I've talked to John a little bit about it already. When I walked the neighborhoods, I originally started only by knocking on doors of the registered voters from the high propensity lists. I quickly realized that by talking to others who were out working on their yards and homes, that some of these residents were not registered voters because they were not citizens, but they still owned their homes. I told them if I were elected that I would still be their council person, as you guys are to everybody in this city. And I told them that, I wanted to know what they also felt about the city also. They were all very appreciative that I even considered them, even though they did not vote. Here are just a few items that the residents of Montclair would like to see looked into that they spoke to me about. A big thing is pride of ownership they talked about. They want to see homeowners improving their properties to beautify their neighborhoods and help to clean up the blight and unwanted trash. I told them when communities come together, more is possible. The reaction to these actions is threefold: safer streets, quality of life, and increased value in your investments. I understand not everyone can spend big dollars to make their properties look great, but we can all maintain what we have with more effort and hard work. Nothing comes easy, as we all must work for it. Police driving the streets. They would also like to see more police presence, not like getting tickets or things like that, but they would just like to see more police presence. That's what they would love to see. And I explained to them that we have lots of police officers that we're budgeted for, we just don't have the staff. So hopefully we'll be able to fix that sometime in the near future. They would also like to see more interaction with the community by police and fire. Maybe put on some training courses to educate the community in what each department does and how the city works, so that way city staff is more accountable for maintaining a great place to live and work. What do residents want? After speaking to multiple people, as I mentioned, police presence in their neighborhoods, homes that are dilapidated need to be taken care of and maybe written up from code enforcement, broken down cars, trash and junk in their front yards, and trash cans that are visible. Graffiti not being cleaned in a satisfactory time. I explained to them about the graffiti hotline. Parking on the streets and trash on the streets because of parking issues. And a lot of people were really excited about cannabis sales, so that was a positive thing, I think. What are residents okay with? Because I did ask them also what they like about the city, because I didn't want it just to be about negative things. And they really enjoyed the senior program, so Marcia, great job on that. Good roads, they're very happy with the roads. They said Upland is terrible and Montclair is amazing. Montclair Place, they like the improvements. They'd like to see more businesses, but they understand what's going on, with the economy. Fire responsiveness, they seem very happy with that. And then the construction and growth. So as they continue, or as you guys continue to approve economic development, that's always a plus. So other than that, that was it. I really enjoyed running for council. I enjoyed it so much that I'm going to continue walking and talking to people. And again, I really do appreciate all of you guys. You guys do a great job, and the city staff too. I mean, you guys do an amazing job. Janice, good to see you. But anyways, if anybody has anything or they want to see me or talk to me about anything, I would love to. So just know that my phone number, you guys have it. Ed will give it to you if you need it. But I do appreciate all the support I got from so many people. So thank you guys, and have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments, Xavier, that you received from the public. I think those are all important issues that you raised, issues that I've raised as well. And I want to commend you again for running for city council. I would recommend everybody should run for city council and get an idea, or run for elected office. It is technically it's the community's jurisdiction. So appreciate that. And congratulations on making a decision. And fortunately, they make it there, but there's always the future. All right, next speaker.
There are no more speakers.
All right. So now we'll move down to one public hearing item. This is a consider adoption of resolution number 22-3381, resolution of necessity for the acquisition of an easement regarding APN, assessor parcel number 1009383-17. So I guess I'm going to start with this hearing script here I have here. So I guess I'll begin as the presiding officer. I'm going to ask if the city council or legal counsel has anything to explain the nature and scope of this hearing. Is there anything we need to be aware of first? No? Okay. And then I'm going to call on our city clerk, and I'm going to ask the city clerk if you have proofs of mailings of the notices of hearings.
Yes, I have proof, and it was provided in the city council's agenda packets.
Okay, so we have that in our packets. All right, number 4 here. And now I'm going to essentially call for a presentation, call upon staff for a report regarding how the real property possibly being acquired relates to the city's purpose. So this time, this will be a staff presentation. Are we ready for that?
Yes, thank you,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor. Members of the City Council, this evening you are asked to consider a public hearing regarding adoption of Resolution Number 22-33-81, a resolution of necessity for acquisition of an easement of interest by eminent domain for a property in the city of Montclair. The subject property is adjacent to the San Antonio Channel, and it would be used as part of the San Antonio Creek Channel pedestrian bike path project, a proposed multimodal transit corridor that would serve pedestrians, cyclists, and exercise enthusiasts. A map depicting the location of the park has been placed on each member of the City Council's in front of you on the dais. It's also viewable on the display panel. Do we have that? Here it goes. So this is the map that has been put in front of you at the dais. It shows you the location of the property. The property that we are talking about this evening is the one outlined in yellow. This is the Boyce and Green parcel. The other parcel outlined in sort of a red burgundy color is the Cynthia Cox parcel. The city did enter into negotiations with Ms. Cox, and she did agree to allow the city to acquire the easement at approximately $4,100, and that easement was recorded on 11/18/2022. The proposed trail that we're talking about would originate at the Pacific Electric Trail in North Montclair, and that trail would extend approximately 3 miles in a southerly direction along the length of the San Antonio Creek Channel in Montclair to Mission Boulevard. The project is integral to several city plans, including the upcoming general plan update that you will receive early next year, the Montclair Avenue Transportation Plan, and the Safe Routes to School Plan. 2 city council workshops on the San Antonio Creek Channel feasibility study were presented this year. The first one was in May, and the second one was on June the 28th. At those workshops, the San Antonio Creek Pedestrian Bike Path Project was defined as a walking, cycling, and exercise trail that would function as a backbone that would connect with other trails, parks, open spaces, schools, the Montclair Trans Center, and other community services on the west side of the city. Staff obtained an appraisal on the subject property, which appraised at $7,600. That's also indicated on the map for the Boyce and Green parcel. An offer of just compensation at the full market value was submitted to the property owner for an easement of interest as required by state law. The property owner of record, Boyce Green Services LLC, which had been located in Fairfield, California, no longer appears to be a viable concern. Public records indicate that that company dissolved in April of 2015. Repeated efforts to reach the property owner or the registered owner of record, who is Brandon Boyce, consistently failed despite the many attempts that the city sought to engage. In fact, we even tried to identify different companies or different addresses that he may be located at, and each of those efforts failed as well. Due to the staff's inability to reach the property owner, an agreement on acquiring an easement of interest has not been obtained, leaving acquisition by eminent domain as the city's last remaining option in relation to acquiring a easement of interest on this property. Accordingly, City Council is asked to consider exercising its power of eminent domain as a last resort to obtain an easement of interest. For the record, the subject property, which is a narrow, unimproved corridor, as you can see on the map, is already restricted with other easements by other agencies and districts, and rendering the property unserviceable except for its easement-related purposes. And again, I want to emphasize that the city is not attempting to acquire the property, but only an easement of interest on the property. On page 6 of your agenda report, the process for when and how a governing body can exercise the power of eminent domain is defined. Furthermore, eminent domain proceedings cannot proceed until the governing body provides relevant parties with an opportunity to appear and be heard on the matter, followed by adoption of a resolution of necessity. And as indicated by the city clerk, a notice of this evening's public hearing and resolution of necessity was sent to the recorded owner on November the 7th of this year in accordance with state law, in order to give them an opportunity to be present this evening before the city council to represent the matter before you. In adopting proposed resolution number 22-3381, the city council is asked to make the following findings. Finding 1, that the public interest and necessity require the project, which would function as a 3-mile intermodal or multimodal transit corridor and pedestrian, cycling, and exercise path. The project would also add much needed parkland space to the city of Montclair. Finding 2, the project is planned or located in a manner most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury. Various components of the proposed trail are outlined in the San Antonio Creek Trail Feasibility Study, a copy of which has been provided to each member of the City Council, as well as the workshop presentations that were presented, as well as receiving public input on the San Antonio Creek Channel proposed project. City has received 2 grants related to the project. One was for conducting the feasibility study, and the second was a $4.2 million grant through the Caltrans Clean California local grant program for construction of the segment of the trail adjacent to Sunset Park, and that is also the segment that is adjacent to the property owned by Boyce and Green, which the city is attempting to acquire an easement of interest. Finding 3, the real property is to be acquired as necessary for the project. As discussed, the subject property is needed to construct segment 1 of the project along the western edge of Sunset Park. Subject property is located along the proposed San Antonio Creek Channel. Therefore, there are no alternative locations that can be acquired to complete segment 1 of the project, because the project is a consistent and coherent project that extends again from the Pacific Electric Trail to the north to Mission Boulevard to the south. Finding 4, an offer of just compensation has been made. As indicated earlier, the offer was submitted on September 4th to Boyce Green Services, LLC, for a permanent easement of interest in the amount of $7,600. Finally, I note that acquisition of a fee interest for a public part is exempt from CEQA review. Therefore, there is no CEQA analysis related to the subject matter presented to you this evening. Fiscal impact related to this project: adoption of proposed resolution number 22-3381 for acquisition of an easement of interest in the subject property would result in a fiscal impact of $7,600. Funding would come from the Economic Development Fund. Funds related to the acquisition of an easement of interest would be deposited with the state of California. Under circumstances as defined in the agenda report, the state considers the property abandoned and will hold the funds in the event a property owner comes forward. The recommendation, staff recommends the City Council adopt resolution number 22-3381, a resolution of necessity for acquisition of an easement of interest in the subject property by eminent domain for construction of segment 1 of the San Antonio Creek Pedestrian Bike Path Trail. Participating by Zoom this evening and available to answer any questions from the City Council regarding the eminent domain process and the resolution of necessity is our special legal counsel, Andrew Seguian, an associate with BB&K. With that, I return it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I just want to announce, before I go on, the public hearing item is open for this item. And at this time, I'm going to call the city clerk to note if any written objections, protests, any requests to be heard which have been filed, received, read, and considered. Have you received anything, city clerk?
Nothing in writing.
Thank you. All right, the next item is now I'm going to call upon any person who has an interest in the property, who wishes to be heard. This is the opportunity to come forward to the city council podium to speak in front of the council. Anybody in the audience, anybody on Zoom that wishes to be heard, this is your opportunity. Who has an interest in the property, this is your opportunity to speak. I don't believe Bruce Cope has an interest in this property, but we'll double check. Mr. Cope, you there?
Yes.
Do you have an interest in
No,
this
and-
property you're speaking of?
No,
Are you a
just-
property owner or any interest?
Not at this point.
Okay,
So
just
I'll
hold on,
I'll
just hold on
speak
first.
Later on.
All right, hold on
Absolutely.
first. All right. So at this time, I don't see, there's no members in the audience or on Zoom, on the phone, who has an interest in the property, wishes to speak. So now I'm going to ask if there's any members of the public that wishes to speak and be heard. This is your opportunity. Again, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. I think we have one member of the public, Bruce Culp, and I think we're ready for him.
All righty.
All right, it's all yours.
Thank you. So this is a public hearing, so I guess you guys can answer any questions I have on this item. So looks to me, as I looked through the agenda today and saw this item and read through it, obviously there's a huge interest from the residents of Montclair to build this San Antonio Creek. Time and time again, we've had surveys, we've had multiple in-person meetings about parks and things like that. And overwhelmingly, the residents of this city want San Antonio Creek Trail. And that is unquestioned outside of anything. So anybody that would oppose this on the city council would obviously have their own agenda on this. So just want to say that at first. So my questions are, generally speaking, this little sliver of property, from a resident standpoint, it doesn't look like you could build something that would benefit the residents, like a homeless place for the homeless, or a police headquarters, or a fire department there, or you couldn't build a mall or a restaurant, no businesses, or maybe a high density residential project in that particular project. So that's my question is there anything else that could potentially be built in this particular sliver of property? Now, as I look through this, so that's my question. So I'm going to make a couple more statements. As I look through this item, it looks like that this property owner is an outside entity, not a resident, lives outside the Montclair residence. So it's just somebody that's just trying to stir up trouble with the city, has no interest other than just trying to oppose anything that the city could develop that would benefit the residents. So from my standpoint, eminent domain is, if that's what it has to come to, is in all likelihood the best option. If this person, this outside entity outside of Montclair, decides that they want to make it an issue that the residents overwhelmingly decided we want in this situation, to make it an issue. So, in my opinion, anybody on the council that would oppose this just has their own personal agenda and should not question it at all. So I say we move forward, give them a fair market value offer, as Mr. Starr has done and negotiated. The city has done an outstanding job of giving every opportunity to this property owner the ability to negotiate a fair market deal. And if that's not something that they want to do, they oppose what the residents' desires and needs are. Just earlier, we heard from a resident who talked specifically about an issue that's related to this. There was an accident where somebody had been hit on a street walking around in our city. This particular project keeps people safe from those types of accidents specifically. So in my mind, this person who, where there was an accident and was injured, if this sanitary creek is built, those types of accidents are reduced significantly because these types of trails bring people off the streets to do their walking and onto a safe place where no cars are allowed and allowed to walk. And so this is an outstanding project. It needs to move forward. This property owner, for whatever reason, they are opposing the will of the residents, and we need to move forward with this project. And if anybody could answer my questions regarding any other use of this property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers from the public?
I do have a request from Xavier Mendez on this
Okay.
item.
All right, thank you again, council, city staff. Just a couple things. I know it's not specifically regarding the properties right there at Sunset Park. So for that, I do agree with, eminent domain on that property. But I did talk to a lot of residents that their homes are along the San Antonio Channel, and they don't feel like they have been notified personally with enough information. And because I was asking them about it, and nobody seems to know about it. Now, is that on them? I imagine it is if we've already given them lots of information. But again, a lot of people don't know, so they're throwing these notices away, just so you know. But they're very concerned. They don't want. A lot of those people don't want it. Some of them did want it, but they're worried about their walls. They have wooden fences. They're worried about the people walking behind, all those items. And I know, as the public works superintendent previously, we had lots of problems with the chain link fences. They're rotted out. They're going to need to be replaced all the way up and down the channel because there's areas that fence will just fall right in, and somebody could fall 12 feet down, and get hurt. So just something to think about. But as far as eminent domain, if nobody's, answering for it, yeah, let's get it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, any other members of the public wish to speak?
That looks like that's it.
I don't see anybody else. I agree with you. I'm going to close this public hearing. I'm going to bring this matter back. Just for clarification, this matter requires 4 votes for affirmation. Am I correct? 4 votes, not 3 votes. We need 4 votes for adoption. I know there was a question from a member of the public. Ed, can you answer that question real fast from a member of the public?
Yes, as related to the question from Mr. Culp regarding whether or not any other improvements can be built onto the project, no. Because of the number of easements that are already on the property, there would be a restriction related to other physical improvements other than just overlay easements that allow for the continued uses that are there now, and that is as a pathway either for maintenance vehicles related to repairs to the channel used by the Army Corps of Engineers, or in some situations along the length of the channel by the Chino Basin Water Protection District. And then, of course, if the city is granted an easement and the trail is constructed, then city-related maintenance vehicles would also be on the trail. But other than that, no other kinds of physical improvements could occur because of the types of overlay easements that already exist.
Great, thank you. Okay, so any members of the council have any questions? Let's start with questions. Any council members who have a question? I don't see anybody. No one's raising the button. Any comments from council? If not, can I, Councilman Lopez then?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as to the process, on September 4th, 2022, the city made an offer of $7,600 to the owner, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All of the notices that were sent to the property owner and address on file, I'm assuming were sent certified mail, return receipt, that type of nature?
Sent by by the U.S. Postal Service.
But they didn't have to sign for it, so we didn't get any acknowledgement whether or not.
I don't believe that they were sent by certified mail. I think they were just sent by U.S. Postal Service, but I could have to confirm that.
Let's get our legal counsel, she on board, because I think you're required to be a certified mail, if I'm correct, from my experience. But go ahead, Andrew, you there? Andrew? Can you hear us?
Hi, guys. This is Andrew Sagan. I'm an attorney with Best and Krieger. And as far as the notice goes, Legally, we're obligated to provide notice to the individual or the entity on the last equalized tax roll, and we're supposed to provide notice of that. And I'm looking at it now to see the mode. I don't see it, but I know we complied with all the legal requirements. I do know that.
And Andrew, that includes certified mail?
That's what I'm unsure of. I just know that we're required to give notice of it. I can't recall specifically the mode of service, but typically the way it works is we pull up the last equalized tax roll and try to pull whatever information we have, whether it's from the title report or what have you. And then there'll be an address on that, and then we provide notice of that hearing. Usually about 6 times out of 10 or so, the individual actually responds like the other property owner did for this project, and then we enter into whatever negotiations. But on this one, it's a little odd because the entity status going back several decades seems to be dissolved in some capacity. So it just might be one of those situations where it's a property interest that somebody doesn't know about. But legally speaking, the city is required to give notice to the address associated, and that's what we did here.
And if I can interject for just a moment, if you send anything by certified mail nowadays, the U.S. Postal Service does not collect a signature. They just leave a notice on your door letting you know that you've received a certified package, and you can come up to the postal office and pick it up. Other than that, they do not seek signed signatures on certified mail any longer.
All right, I appreciate the explanation. Sir, if I don't want to slaughter your last name, so, and thank you, Mr. City Manager. I am concerned, there was a statement just made by the attorney from Best and Krieger that perhaps there is an entity or individual out there that has ownership of the property and just doesn't know it, if indeed that the entity on record has now since been dissolved. If other entities have easements on the property in question, I know the Army Corps of Engineers is one of them, and we do this and we're yet another entity that has an easement, are we not going to run into conflict with the other entities that also have easement rights to this property?
Well, it's a similar type of easement. It's merely for a use of the land for purposes of pedestrian or vehicle maintenance. So there really is no conflict related to that. And as long as we cooperate with and seek the approvals of the current easement owners, then, and they have no objection to the city having a similar type of easement, then there is no issue.
Okay.
And I can comment on that too, if you'd like me to explain a little bit more about that process.
Sure. Say your last name again for me, please.
Yes, it's Sagian.
Sagian, thank you.
So typically the way it works when there are competing easement interests, whether it be private or public utilities, what have you, what the city would do is name everybody with an interest on the property in the complaint. And then there's a concept known as the greater public good. And what typically happens is utilities and public agencies are really good at working with each other on kind of figuring out what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And here it seems the uses are acceptable that the city is trying to implement with those already existing easements. And so what would happen is while we name them, we're going to go ahead and work with these entities to ensure that the purpose in which the city is acquiring these interests is preserved and that the project can move forward as contemplated.
And Mr. City Manager, we received a grant of what was it?
4.2 million.
2 million for the first implementation of the trail, and it was supposed to be for a pilot program for the trail that's along Sunset Park, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Although I know that we adopted, and I don't recall how I voted on it, I may have voted against it. Andrea can correct me if did I? Okay, I'm sorry. I know that we adopted a policy whereby we would implement the trail from the north all the way down to the south for about, what, 3.5 miles. So that's already in place irregardless of the pilot program at Sunset Park, although that is the first tranche of it, if you will. I can't find the word. If this were not to happen, what would happen with the $4.2 million? Just get held up in the account until we come to agreement and proceed?
If the easement was not approved by the city council as far as eminent domain?
Yes.
We would lose the grant. Because the easement is required for us to move forward.
Okay.
And just for the record, the council approved a feasibility study. Conceptually, you approved the plan. You didn't approve funding for the project, except in the instance of accepting the grant for the particular segment, segment 1 on the west side of the channel, or the east side of Sunset, or west side of Sunset Park, rather.
I have the same reservations as I expressed when we had that hearing back in May or June of this year. Xavier Mendez is right. Residents that I have also spoken to along certain parts of the potential trail, either uneasy about it, unsure, don't want it, and that is irrespective of perhaps those residents that don't live in the area that do. Perhaps some of them are throwing away notices. That's speculative, and it possibly could happen. I'm struggling with this, colleagues. I know it might be a simple no-brainer issue for some of you, but I'm struggling. I just have never been a fan of the concept of eminent domain, especially when an owner, perhaps, that doesn't know they own the property, when the day comes when they find out they do own the property, they're going to find out of the action tonight, and it might catch them off guard. But I'm willing to listen to other comments and whatnot and come to a decision, but I just still find this hard for me, and that's just me, and that's no hidden agenda. That's just a personal how I view things with respect to people's right to property, and I am leery of any government entity using eminent domain. And I know the city has rarely done that, so I'm not saying that we're abusing that option.
Councilmember Rue, Mayor Term Rue, excuse me.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too, although I think this is a great project, I too have heard from residents, especially those on Amherst, who have said they have tremendous concern about, as one resident said to me, strangers that close to my backyard. They're worried about people may take trash and throw it in their backyard. I can't say whether somebody would or they wouldn't. They are concerned about their safety. Several people indicated to me that they said, who's going to clean up all of the trash? They're very concerned that there will be trash there. I had heard concerns about in the evening. They're worried about transients. They're worried about people back there in the evening. They don't want loud noises. Who's going to enforce this? I understand those concerns as well as the residents who said to me that they want this. I think we need to look at what we can do to give a comfort level to those residents who may be along that stretch. I would, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I empathize with those who said they're worried about noise at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. People can still access the trail. They want their tranquility of that neighborhood. And I don't know if the people who are going to use the trail will be noisy and bad people. I don't suspect they will, but there's always that chance. So I think we need to put something together so that these residents can feel a sense of comfort in their neighborhood. And several people told me they don't recall receiving notices. I can't say for certain. I receive notices a lot of times on things, and I may look at it and not remember I received it. I received one today from Monte Vista Water District about some rate changes. That one I put up on my little calendar area at home. But I think we need to be very cautious in how we're going to deal with these residents. Do we have a plan in place to deal with their comfort and their safety? Is there a way, perhaps, to get a meeting with some of the residents over there and talk to them? Those are some of the concerns I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Councilmember Johnson's, her hand is up, but Ed, the $4.2 million we granted, that money also is being used for the park itself for improvements, not just for the trailway, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. It is used for
Oh.
Sunset Park as well as improvements on the east side of the channel, which does not, is not contiguous to any residential
Okay.
properties.
Second of all, I believe when we had the discussion on the San Antonio plan, and this is, we talked about the importance of security. The design's going to come back to the city council. The construction plans will come back to the city council. We're going to notify the residents who'll be affected at those particular times based on whatever phase they're in. Am I correct? That's the direction you received?
You are correct. And I also want to add that the plan would provide for new fencing on both sides of the corridor. So along the San Antonio Creek Channel side, the fence that is currently there and maintained by the Army Corps of Engineers would have another fence that's constructed by the city as part of the project. And then on the opposite side that keeps the corridor or people within the path, there would be another fence on the west side. So whatever side of the channel they're on, there would be a double fence that would keep them away from private properties that would be to the west, or any other properties, for example, the basins operated by the Chino Basin Water Conservation District, that would be to the east.
And then, Ed, in regards to this action today, this action does not trigger, this action is strictly a real estate action, does not trigger any approvals of the project itself. I mean, that's, again, that will come back to us at a later date.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Again, I do want to emphasize that this is not eminent domain for acquiring the property. The property remains either A, in the hands of the property owner of record, or B, it's an abandoned property. The person doesn't even know, or in this case, the LLC doesn't even know that they own the property, and they've lost interest in it, or are not aware that they have any interest in it. So this process simply allows for the easement, which is compatible with the other easements that are already on the property. It doesn't take the property from the owner, and if the owner should ever be identified, they will get the funds that are submitted to the state for that easement.
And then we were successful with the other property in Cynthia Cox, am I correct?
You are correct.
Yes. And Andrew, if you're there, so the way this process works is the funds get deposited into the state's treasury fund, if I'm correct, the entire $7,600. If the property owner ever were to appear, does the property owner can still dispute the value of the property at a future date?
The way it would work is, so it's sort of, it's a little more convoluted, but typically the way it would happen is, if today, we've already touched on it, but if the resolution of necessity is adopted, the city then is authorizing legal counsel to proceed with filing an actual complaint in the Superior Court. Along with that action in Superior Court, we would file with staff's approval what's known as a motion for prejudgment possession. That motion allows the city to obtain possession of the property before judgment is actually entered. And as part of that motion, we file what's known as a notice of deposit. And you're just right, that deposit is the amount that we appraised it for, and we deposit it in the State of California Condemnation Deposits Fund. Now, because there's this individual that we know who has a property interest, or this entity at least, what would happen is we would make all attempts to serve them. If we're unable to serve them, we would go about what's known as publishing notice, which would put notice out there in a circular, a newsletter, a newspaper in the local area, indicating that this property is subject to a lawsuit. And then after a certain amount of time, legally, the court would be satisfied that sufficient notice has been provided to the property owner, and then a default would be entered against the entity. And then once that's taken, assuming there are no other issues with the other encumbrances or easement holders, there would be a default judgment. Now, once that default judgment is entered, there's a judgment indicating that the property is valued at X amount. assuming there's no dispute, the judgment would be that the property is valued for $7,100, and then that money is going to remain on deposit with the state of California. In the future, if someone realizes that there's this property interest and that there's this money on deposit, the only avenue that they would have is to actually withdraw that deposit, because by that point the judgment would have been entered. I suppose there are avenues to set aside judgments, but that's a whole nother matter that's probably not relevant today.
And then prior to a default, if the owner or entity were to appear, then they can negotiate this with the city. If we can't agree on something, then they can go to a jury trial, and then the jury will decide the value of the property. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. How about Councilmember Tenise Johnson next?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, as all of us know, we have to make decisions based on the greater good, but we also have to be sensitive to the needs of residents who will be intimately impacted. And so I was really encouraged to hear City Manager Starr talk about all of the improvements that will be made to protect the residents so that to address their concerns. So I think, and I'm also encouraged that what we're doing right now is just talking about an easement. We're not talking about taking something that someone's holding on to or trying to hold on to. So I really think that in the interest of the greater good, we should move forward.
Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. So one of the responsibilities of an easement holder is to maintain the property and maintain the safety of the property. So as to any concerns that there would create a danger to the neighboring households, it's actually the opposite effect. We're going to have the ability to make sure that this strip of land is safe, that there's fences like City Manager Starr mentioned, and we also have to consider that we need to weigh the potential threats of danger that the residents are fearful of versus all of the positive benefits and the danger that will be removed by creating this pathway that is close to our safe routes to schools, planned walk path to the neighboring schools. So we have now a safe way for our children to get to their schools. We have a safe way for people to do recreation, to walk to their stores and to walk to entertainment or to take bikes, to walk their dogs. This is really going to be a positive for our city, and not to discount the concerns of the residents, but I have full faith that our city is going to do whatever it needs to do to make sure that there are barriers in place so that those residents are protected as well. But we really have to consider how beneficial that trail is going to be for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lopez.
Here's where it gets just even more complicated for me. City Manager just stated a few moments ago that it does not take the property away from the property owner. We're just getting an easement. And Mr. Sagian, I hope I said that right, stated that if depending on the action, if the resolution is adopted, we then go to court. At some point, a motion of prejudgment possession is submitted in Superior Court, which basically gives us possession of the property to use it for the purpose as described, which is for the trail and the walkway and whatnot. So if we're not technically on paper taking away the property, we're still changing the nature of the property. And at the point in which the mayor stated an owner of the property can go, perhaps if they wanted to seek a jury trial to seek some sort of remedy or get the easement off or property back, by then the nature of the property has completely changed and you can't unring a bell. And that's the dilemma that I'm facing, because we could no doubt develop the land for the usage of the said trail. And in the course of it being built and all the oddities added, the double fencing, down to the landscaping, the different course of path, which is, I remember in the presentation, the one for walking, one for biking, the drainage, et cetera. All that could be in place and spent, and we could find ourselves with an owner of this property seeking some remedy or pulling the plug. That's
Yeah, no,
my...
that's not what I said. What I said is that the owner can go to a jury trial and argue the value of the property. The owner can argue that the property is worth more than the appraisal that we have. The owner does not get back the easement. The only thing the owner can argue what that value is, and the jury could say, yes, we agree with you, we think the value is much higher, and if that's the case, then the city will be obligated to pay the difference, pay more, basically.
Okay.
But the property is
Right,
not.
and I could
Sorry.
speak to that, and it might be conceptually easier to understand it in this way. The way I like to think of eminent domain lawsuits are it's two components. The one is the right to take, which is actual possession of it, and then the second is just compensation. So in any eminent domain, the acquiring agency is not just acquiring the property without giving anything in return. There's a whole process in place with appraisals, and that appraisal process is what informs the just compensation phase. So to the extent we file a complaint and we go about the process the way I was talking about with the default, what would happen in that situation is, as part of a default judgment, the city would likely request that the right to take issue be adjudicated. So that would only leave the right or the just compensation phase. And as we touched on earlier, the just compensation would only preserve a potential argument to increase whatever amount would be there. And that assumes an individual actually comes to the table. If there's a default judgment for both the right to take and a just compensation, I go back to what I mentioned earlier, is that it is final, although there are all sorts of exceptions with any litigant, not just eminent domain, potentially setting aside a judgment, but that is an uphill battle. So that's kind of how I like to think of eminent domain, is it's two different phases, but once a judgment is entered, it is a judgment.
You stated that the notices were sent to the last bit of information from the last tax filing of the entity, correct?
That's what is legally required, but on this situation, because the entity has been defunct for so long, the title reports were our guiding document.
Okay, and this might actually put me at ease and determine where I'm going on this. How far back were you able to determine that the entity or owner was basically missing from the scene with respect to this property? I thought I heard something about 2017.
I think the city manager and staff might be able to comment on this, but I want to say several decades.
Okay, more than 2017.
Yes.
And then how much time do we have with the 4.2 million that we have to legally use before we spend it, before we lose it or have to return it, Mr. City Manager?
Well, typically 2 years. We have to have some demonstrated actions on a grant. If we don't have it, then it typically would have to be returned. In this particular case, state of California is quite concerned that we don't have the eminent domain rights at this point in time, and so they are agreeing to work with us until we acquire those rights. But based on the terms of this grant, we actually had to have a shovel-ready project ready to move forward, and except for this particular easement issue, we are there. We just need to complete this process.
Okay, thank you for the answers.
Mayor Pro Tem Rue.
Yes. If we should move forward with this, I would like to see that we set up some type of a situation to meet with the residents that will back up to this property. It's not just a case of safety, which they are concerned about. We need to listen to what the residents need to say, not just assume whatever the city does will meet their needs. We need to talk to them directly. We also need to deal with the situation of noise. When you put in a use such as this, you will increase noise in the area. Some residents are concerned that they'll be in their backyard and have a lot of noise going on that they do not have at present. We need to be sensitive to this, we need to talk to them, and we need to see what we can do to work with them. I don't think it's right to just assume because the city's putting something in, it'll make it better for them. If you go by that analogy, simply talk to the people whose homes back up to the I-10 freeway, whether the improvements they made have made it better or worse. That's up to you to talk to those residents. I think the answer you'll hear is they feel it's a lot worse than it was before all this went on. So there's no guarantee that what we do will meet the needs of those residents, but let's go and talk to them. I'd like some guarantee that we will do something to meet with those residents in person, not just with a notice. It's not that hard for us to go out on a Saturday or set up something somewhere in that neighborhood where they could get together and talk to us. I think it's important to hear their input on this because this is changing their neighborhood tremendously. Some say it's for the better. It may be. Some say it's worse. It may be. I don't know. I don't live there. But I do know I've heard a lot from residents over there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would agree, Mayor Pro Tem Rue, as this project is progressing in the different phases, we'll start with this first one, that we should be engaging with the residents, and I think staff has got that direction again this evening. So we'll not just do notices, but we will let this, let the property owners adjacent to the flood control channel to participate in the meetings, see the plans, provide input as we're developing those designs. So I think it's a good idea. I'd like to remind my council colleagues again, the area in question is not buildable. You can't build anything there. It's strictly adjacent to the channel there. There's already easements by the utility companies. And also, I think the Army Corps of Engineers, I was told, has access easements in that area as well. And in this case, all we do is acquire an easement. And I'd like to remind council colleagues, too, that there is $4.2 million, as you know, but some of this money will be used for the improvement of Sunset Park, not just this site here. So if we approve the easement, I hope we do approve the easement tonight, and then if we go later to the design, comes back here, we're not happy with it, doesn't mean we have to approve the design if we're not happy with it, even though we got this easement acquired. So I hope Councilmember Brew, you're also comfortable with the legal process in terms of the eminent domain we're going through. And I'd like to see if there's a motion for approval.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
The second by Councilman Martinez. And let's have electronic vote. Thank you very much. It's adopted unanimously. And we will now move on to the consent calendar. And I will start my right. Any members of my right wish to move an item off the consent calendar? If not, I will move to my left. Any members of my left who wish to move an item off the consent calendar? Nothing? If not, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as submitted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lopez, first by Johnson. Let's have electronic vote. And that's adopted 4-0 with Mayor Pro Tem Rue absent. And now we move on to business item. We have one item on the on the agenda. This is regarding consideration of action minutes. I believe where we left it off, there was a request by Councilmember Johnson that the October meeting, action minutes of October meeting be presented as well for review. And maybe I'll start with Councilmember Johnson if you have any questions based on your request.
I don't have any questions. I think that I would like to hear some feedback from our city clerk and our city manager about the blurb that I sent. So I don't think that we need to have exhaustive minutes that say every utterance. We don't need that. We just need the highlights. And as an example, after the last meeting I attended, I sent a little blurb of how we could do that without it taking so long and so much work for staff. And I'm just interested to hear if there's any feedback on what was sent.
I would like to say that I would like to hire you as my deputy. No, I'm just kidding. And I was very happy with the proposal you suggested. However, I was still a little hesitant that it did not include, if I was going to be picking and choosing which points someone brought up, that I wasn't, picking and choosing the right points that they cared the most about. So that's always my concern, is if I'm trying to summarize someone's points of concern, that if I feel something was not as emphasized as something else, I might omit it, and that council member might feel that that should not have been omitted. And that's where I feel like my judgment is taxed a lot on trying to determine which points to include and which points to not include. So generally in the city clerk conferences that I attend, they very much encourage summarizing a discussion as a discussion without attributing comments to individual council members, and concluding the discussion with the action that was taken, and maybe just bringing up the points, some of the points in general, just as a discussion, but not this person said this and that person said that. So that is kind of more of the avenue I was trying to take this, is to try and keep it a little bit more neutral and just as a discussion as a whole among the body. So that was my concern, and I did like how succinct your summary was, and I did try to at least include a little bit more in there if you want to keep it kind of with that attribution to this person's concerns and that person's concerns. So if you'll see in the summary that I included, it did have mainly what you sent over, and then a little bit more detail.
I think that's a really nice compromise between the exhaustive minutes that take hours and hours and hours,
Yes.
and an action minutes. I think that's a really nice compromise.
Councilmember Martinez.
So I don't know how often people actually go back and look at the minutes. I would imagine it's not very often. If they do go back and look at the minutes, the purpose would be to figure out who voted for what happened. And the proposal here allows for, if any person is curious about who exactly said what and what was their tone, it allows for them to go back and view the video that is going to be saved for eternity, to really get an idea of what happened. I think the challenge with getting more detailed is, like you said, there's going to be some differences in interpretation of inflection and meaning and that sort of thing. So if someone is truly interested in what happened, even a verbatim council meeting minute is not going to accomplish the goal of figuring out what really happened. So the video accomplishes that. Now, I think it is very important to approve the request for action minutes, especially now when we have staffing issues. We are having trouble finding people to fill roles in our city, and our city clerk is telling us that this is taking way too long, taking away way too much time from her job duties and potentially other job duties of other employees that are helping out. And I just don't see why, when so many other cities are doing the same thing, there have not been any issues. This is not a new sort of request that has emerged from our city only, why we can't go this route. And perhaps if there are problems in the future, maybe when we have more adequate staffing levels, we could bring back the full minutes if it really is a problem at that point. But I I can see this being very beneficial for our city. Importantly, because we need our city clerk available to do other things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Rue.
Yes, thank you. How many cities in our general area, and perhaps this was asked when I had to step out of the room for a moment, how many cities in our area use these action minutes?
It's the majority of them. I think we provided a detailed list of the cities for our area at the last meeting.
It's
but I
on
don't
page 103.
Page 103. Perhaps I did not see that. One of the things I see beneficial to doing the minutes as we are doing them now is it's easier for the public to be able to look at an item in written minutes, instantly go to that item, see what was said. We had a very spirited debate just a little bit ago on the issue of the San Antonio Creek Channel and Trail. Somebody may wish to go to those minutes, look at them, and read what was said. I find if I have to go through a video, I have to keep checking it, moving through it, moving through it, moving through it, till it gets to the area that I want. With minutes, I can look at it much more easily. Quite often there are people, and I'm one of them, I do much better reading something than I do with the visual. For work, I have to read a lot of different policy statements. I need to know what's gone on in a lot of meetings. I may not have the time to sit in my office for an hour and a half and look at the video of something when I can easily just scan down to the minutes of something in an agenda and see what's been said. I think it's good to do the minutes as we're doing them because you get the interpretation of what the council has said. You understand that there was this good debate on an issue. If you don't get the tone of what the council member said because perhaps the clerk wasn't able to do that, then somebody can check the minutes by the visual. I think the way we're doing it is perfectly fine. I like the fact that we can check back on these. And yes, many people do go back and read minutes. For a living, I have to read minutes from different cities, and so I do read them. There may be residents here who go back and read them. They may read them online. We don't know. Maybe they aren't requesting them. Maybe they're simply going online and reading the minutes. So I think the way we're doing them is fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Lopez.
My comments from, I guess it was a month ago, are still the same. I was under the impression that one particular meeting that lasted 3 hours, maybe 3.5, took about 7 to 9 hours to prepare minutes, correct? Okay. And I had stated then that that was an exception to the rule and not the norm, in that we don't have meetings that go on for hours on end with multiple speakers. Most of our meetings are relatively short, like the last meeting was down to an hour. I believe the time frame on YouTube had it down to an hour. And that's the norm of our meetings. I know that the issue regarding comment by my colleague about staffing, that perhaps this would be best because it would alleviate perhaps the load on staff, could possibly be true. I would remind my colleagues that in this particular department, we did approve for an assistant city clerk to be hired. So that person, that individual, would no doubt help with the load of preparation of minutes for our council, that on average our meetings only last an hour. So I am of Council Mayor Pro Tem Rue's opinion that the manner in which we've done it is is working, it's fine. Yes, there are residents that do read the minutes, there absolutely are. And some of them, depending on who they are, some residents scour them with a fine-tooth comb, and that's fine, that's their right to do so. I just don't see the current manner in which we produce minutes as a problem, and I think it's a benefit that our public are accustomed to. Sure, it is simpler. I think the city clerk just kind of proved the dilemma in going to action minutes, and that is choosing which comments to include and not include without running afoul to the opinion of 1 or 2, 3 council members as to what to include, because I think what could happen, we see in one city nearby that has action minutes, they constantly amend them, and they make motions to correct, and those minutes then have to reflect the amendments on minutes. And we don't have that problem right now, and it's working fine. I think everyone that comes to the podium, whether it is a development issue, a safe routes to school issue, the development up on Huntington Drive, marijuana, hell, even those attacking me, they have a right to have their comments included in the minutes. And I think that doing otherwise limits them to just having their name saying so-and-so spoke in favor of this, so-and-so spoken against this. And if I sacrifice my time to come and make comments, I would like to have those attributed in the minutes, and I think we owe the members of the public that. And I just don't see a need, and that's not a dig at the current city clerk's office, because I've been very pleased with the service, the level and degree of service we've gotten from the city clerk's office, especially on election matters and campaign filings and whatnot. But anyhow, I just don't see the need for it. I really don't.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if Bruce Cope wants to speak or not, so can we check, make sure his hand's raised? You there, Bruce?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I won't. I probably had more to say than I want to, but basically, yeah, I do read a lot of the minutes. I'm one of the residents, probably. I don't know if there's a lot of residents that read the minutes, but I do. And I look at my comments, and as mentioned, first of all, I'd like to say Andrea is one of the most important people that sits over there every Monday, and really appreciate all she does. Trying to figure this out and spend the time and figure out what needs to go and include those in comment and what not to include. I've been disappointed in 1 or 2 things that I've expanded on and didn't see it in the comments, but you know what? She captures the spirit of what I say every time, and I really appreciate all she does with that. And so, I think we're making a bigger deal out of this than we need to. The changes that are being requested, I think, are appropriate. And if we have an assistant to help assist her with, but I like was said, there are many other duties of the clerk. I don't know if residents understand the amount of work that goes into that role there. But the minutes are just one of many responsibilities of our clerk, and we need to think about all the different things. And obviously the council comments are important, but I think when you capture the spirit and the fact that most residents will look at if they're going to read the comments of minutes, they're going to probably, like I do, read the comments of the last meeting, which are available on YouTube, which are available electronically. So just keep that in perspective, that we don't need everything, every single last word in these things. And I appreciate the time that you gave me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to reiterate with Bruce that I should have started at the beginning. The council members apologize for the lateness. So we have 2 choices here, council members. You either can make a motion to continue with the summary minutes, or you can make a motion to go with the action minutes. So do I have a motion? Anybody wants to go first?
May I offer a compromise, perhaps? I mean, you guys have the right to shoot it down. Piggybacking on what Ms. Martinez said, to give this a shot, and if we've determined there's, for whatever reason, a need to go back, we can always do so. I'd be willing to compromise if we give this perhaps a year shot, and then we reevaluate it this time next year.
Yeah,
Or
if
6
you want to
months?
compromise, I'm good with that. How about we do this? Then how about we make a motion that we will do action minutes, and then we will reevaluate this at our first July meeting. Does that sound good? The first July meeting, or if we don't meet the first July, then the second July
Of
meeting.
23, correct?
Yeah, one of those two meetings we'll reevaluate. Is everybody good with that?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then I'll,
Well, I will second that.
okay.
But
Then
it
we have a
doesn't mean
second the
I
motion.
Agree with action minutes. It means I'm willing to go along with this compromise and see how they go.
Okay, so we have a first and second by Lopez and Rue. The motion is to go with action minutes, and we will reevaluate this in July, or July 2023 meeting. And can we have electronic vote?
Mr. Mayor, there's a second part to the recommendation, that you revise the retention period for video, audio recordings of meetings to permanent. So at least for
Okay.
that 6.
Would the
I guess.
maker of the motion, Lopez, include the second recommendation?
Yes, I would concur.
And will the second, okay, so that includes the second portion of that recommendation regarding the video audio recordings. And with that, if no comments, we will take the electronic vote. That's unanimous. Thank you. We will now go down to, we have a council workshop at 5:45 on December the 5th with Dave Turch. No further action required. So ordered. Communications.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh.
you had stated something regarding that,
I'm sorry.
about perhaps moving closed session up to 5:15.
Yeah, I was, under my communication, I was going to ask that we have a closed session meeting on Monday, December 5th at 5:15 as a special meeting prior to this workshop.
I'm just curious, is there a reason why we wouldn't do it customarily after the meeting that day?
Because we have another, there's another event going on after the meeting that day. That's the reason why, so we're moving it up.
All right.
So, we are now communications, and I will start with the department reports, Human Resources, Human Services Department.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I just wanted to mention the holidays are upon us, and I wanted to update you on some upcoming and exciting activities and events coming to Montclair. You may have noticed donation bins for the holiday toy and food basket program were placed at locations around Montclair, including City Hall, our Senior Center, Recreation Center, Fire Station 1, and the Police Department. They're also at several businesses throughout the community. Donations will be accepted through Thursday, December 8th, and then they will be collected on the 9th. We've already received several generous donations of toys for our younger children. So if you're interested in donating a toy, something for a preteen or a teen would be appreciated. Sports balls, craft kits, cosmetics, gift cards, or movie tickets are suggested options. If you have a large donation and need a pickup, or would like to make a monetary donation, please contact me after the meeting. And many thanks to all who have donated and will donate. I want to welcome everyone to attend our Holly Jolly Holiday event. It's scheduled for Thursday, December 1st from 6 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. at our youth center. The evening will include our tree lighting and complimentary photos with Santa and Mrs. Claus. The event will also feature refreshments while supplies last and an area where children can write letters to Santa. Gift lights in memory or in honor of a loved one will also be available for purchase. We hope to see you there. Our police and fire departments will be holding food and toy drives at Costco to support our holiday food and food basket programs. The drives will be held at Montclair Costco on Friday, December 2nd and 9th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we'll have a list of suggested needed items available the day of the event to help make your shopping even easier. And finally, our Community Activities Commission invites you to submit your entry for the Holiday Home Decoration Contest. Entry applications are available on the city website and are due by Friday, December 9th at 6 p.m. Winners will be announced at an upcoming city council meeting.
Thank you. And then Chief Avels?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I just wanted to let you guys know tonight that the police department, the fire department, and human services will be participating in this year's Dashing Through Montclair event on Saturday, December 3rd from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m.-ish, because we never really know if it's going to absolutely end at 6. This year, we did bring back the local stops that we've done in the past throughout the community. So we'll be stopping at the parking lot of Lehigh Elementary School, the southeastern parking lot of Saratoga. We'll be here briefly at City Hall, mostly for a brief break, but also to see some children and residents that show up at this location. Then we'll be stopping at MacArthur Park as we normally do, and then ending at the front police department parking lot at 6 p.m.-ish. So, and that's all I really have for you.
The only complaint I got is you guys are not going south of the railroads of Montclair.
Yeah, I know we do get those complaints, and sometimes we get complaints that, you know, we didn't come to this street or to that street, and we do the really best that we can with it. It's a very long event, but
Yeah.
it is a wonderful event, and people can follow Santa along just like they have in the years
Right.
past, and they can come stop with us at some of those locations, so, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, City Attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have several items that I would ask that the city council meeting closed session to discuss. The first category are pending litigation, and there's the 4 matters indicated: Garcia versus Lopez in Montclair, Fuentes versus Lopez in Montclair, Kresbeck versus Hamilton in Montclair, and Dowser versus Montclair. Then a second category is for the council to meet in closed session with our designated labor negotiator, Mr. Starr, regarding one or more of the bargaining groups listed there in the agenda. And the third item is to meet in closed session regarding potential litigation involving one potential case. The only other thing I have this evening is to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving and a good time over the holiday.
Thank you very much. City Manager Starr, you have anything?
No items.
As I indicated earlier, I'd like to have a special meeting, closed session on December 5th at 5:15 to discuss the city manager's contract. And moving on, I like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I also like to state that, thank God, the election's over with, but nevertheless, I want to congratulate my colleagues up here, both Bill and Carissa, on your re-election, and of course, recognize both Xavier. I don't see Julie here today, but I'm pretty sure she may be online. I'm running for city council. One of the issues that I believe that I heard a lot, especially on social media, was homelessness, chronic homelessness in the community. And Mr. Starr, if I'm correct, we're supposed to have a workshop early next year on homelessness. Is that?
We are planning to schedule a workshop on
Okay.
homelessness in 2023, yes.
Yes, and we'll be discussing more about a framework of that. And I also have asked our Council of Governments, Seminole County Council of Governments, we're going to have a discussion on this in December, if this is an item that we wish to further have dialogue and information and seek solutions, perhaps as a community of this county, including Seminole County, to see what we can do to lessen this issue. I want to recognize Monte Vista Water District. I know Tony Lopez, the director's in the audience, but we got a letter today or last week, a good letter, Tony, so it's a good letter. And just recognizing our staff regarding the drought response collaboration. So thank you to our staff in Monte Vista Water District. And then finally, Goal Line, I know that next week, Thursday of next week, the Los Angeles Metropolitan Transportation Authority, it will consider prioritizing transportation projects for submittal to the state for their, it's called TIRCP application. And I believe the hope is, or the goal will be, is to make, for LA Metro, to make Goal Line the highest priority. And then from there, there's a preliminary application due in December to the state, and then there's in January or February, there's a formal application due, and then there's an award that comes out in the springtime. So that's the progress now is occurring. So if everything goes according to plan, I do believe the LA Metro Board will make this a high priority for their application. And of course, San Diego County Transportation Authority should be a partner in that application. And then, so hopefully this spring, we will see about $700 million awarded. So I will probably just be speaking at the LA Metro Board meeting on Thursday. It's virtual, it's not an in-person event. So Mayor Pro Tem Rowe, you're next.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will pick up where you left off involving Gold Line. He's distilled it rather well. I too will be on that call. I will also, or what I have also been doing is talking to my contacts on the MTA board. Some of them I've known for a number of years, and letting them know why this is important to the region. We have sent a letter from this city, or letters from the city on this issue, and I am always hopefully optimistic that our voice will be heard on this. It is a regional issue. It is not one of just LA or a few cities in LA County. It is indeed regional, and we need to continue to emphasize that. It's a way to get people to and from work, to and from school. Entertainment, I can go on, but it's a way to make transportation easier for many people. I will then go on to the elections. I give my congratulations to my colleagues who have been successful, and to Mr. Mendez and Ms. Orozco for helping provide a very spirited campaign. And I appreciate that. Unlike sometimes, we didn't see any negatives, or at least I didn't hear any negatives on anybody. And I think we all heard many of the same concerns from residents, some positives, some negatives, and some things that there's really not a lot you can do about. That's just the nature of it. But I look forward to the next 4 years here. And yes, we represent all those who call Montclair home, whether they're a resident, a business, a visitor, or somebody who's just passing through town. We represent all of them, and we hear their concerns, and we do try to work on them. I want to note a passing in the region. Captain Katie Roberts, former Chaffee College District trustee, former police captain in the city of Ontario. In fact, she was the first female police officer hired by the city of Ontario. She passed away a few days ago. Katie was a dear, dear friend of mine. I'd known her probably close to 30 years. She did a tremendous amount of work outside of her professional life and her role as a trustee. She was involved with West End Family Counseling. She was involved with Ontario Rotary. She was involved in many different organizations and helped make lives of people better. She had been in declining health for many years, and those of us who knew and loved Katie tried to be with her on her journey as much as we could. She will be missed in this region, and we appreciate her leadership, not just in a neighboring city, but her leadership on Chaffee College, where she truly cared about young people and their education. And we continue to need those advocates in our society. And last, Thursday next, or this upcoming Thursday, is Thanksgiving Day. I wish everybody a nice Thanksgiving. And I'd like to repeat the words of President John F. Kennedy, or part of the words. He spoke on Monday, November 4th, 1963, when he said, "Today we give thanks, most of all, for the ideals of honor and faith we inherit from our forefathers, for the decency of purpose, steadfastness of resolve, strength of will, and for the courage and humility which they possessed and which we must seek every day to emulate. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. Let us therefore proclaim our gratitude to Providence for manifold blessings. Let us be humbly thankful for inherited ideals, and let us resolve to share those blessings and those ideals with our fellow human beings throughout the world." Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rue, would you like to make the request to adjourn in memory of Katie Robbins?
I would, if that is appropriate.
So ordered.
Couple questions and then 2 comments. I noticed there are 2 military banners north of the 10 freeway on Monte Vista Avenue that have been removed. Have they been removed by the city, or was that SBCTA? North of the 10 freeway, Monte Vista.
Are you talking about where the construction is?
Yes.
Being done? Yeah, those have been moved for a while. They were just moved further up on Monte Vista.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Yes.
And then regarding, word is out, folks know that I spoke rather forcefully on the alley issue. So I'm being asked if bids are in and if they've been selected and if we are soon to go on starting on any section of alleys to be repaved.
I do believe we've received bids and we're prepared to go out for construction. Is that correct, Monica? Yes.
Perhaps December?
Well, probably won't begin until next year.
Okay.
Early next year.
Because I
Is
know the
that-
money has to be spent by February, so that's why I was asking.
Yes.
And then just 2 quick comments and then a statement regarding Thanksgiving. I would like to thank former Montclair firefighter engineer Robert Estrada for his years of service here in the city of Montclair. His last day was November 17th. I believe he was here about 5-6 years, maybe more. I could be wrong. But I wanted to convey our thanks for his service to the residents. And on a personal note, I appreciated his professionalism and his genuine care and concern you can see in his eyes when he answered one of the calls regarding one of our relatives at the time we didn't know had COVID, and later passed, and he followed up and followed through with our family to offer condolences and always checked to see how she was. He went above and beyond, and he also attended to a call that we had when my grandmother was in her urgent time of need, and it is appreciative. So I wanted to acknowledge him, that we are grateful and wish him the best Godspeed in his future endeavors with another agency. There is another passing that recently happened. However, I do not know the date. I have reached out to the member's family who might provide me some more information, but perhaps they don't want to talk to anyone right now because of the passing. And that is Dr. Michael Flores, who used to represent both Montclair and Ontario on the Ontario-Montclair School District. Dr. Flores was, I believe, a double doctorate. He was a man of great education. And one thing I appreciate of him when he got elected in 2010 is that he made sure that, he told me at the time, Montclair would not be neglected because, as was the case prior to going to districts, we rarely, if any, had a Montclair resident on that board. I believe we only had one member prior to redistricting or going to districts. We only had one Montclair resident prior to that. Even though he lived in Ontario, he did make it a priority to represent Montclair, and I appreciated that. He did have an aggressive form of cancer. His daughter last posted that my dad has an aggressive form of cancer. Keep him in prayer. Keep our family in prayer. Well, not too long after that post, the man did pass. So to the Flores family, our condolences, and I thank him for his contribution to our youth and our kids in both cities during his service on the Ontario-Montclair School Board. And of course, yes, it is Thanksgiving, a day to give thanks. Thankfully, COVID is not as severe as it was in 2020 and 2021, which prevented many of us from gathering with family. But it all started back with President Abraham Lincoln's Thanksgiving proclamation issued on October 3rd, 1863, and this is pulled from National Archives, where it said, "No human counsel hath devised, nor hath any mortal hand worked out these great things. They are the gracious gifts of the Most High God, who, while dealing with us in anger for our sins, had nevertheless remembered mercy. I do, therefore, invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States and those who are sojourning in foreign lands to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens." It has seemed to me fit and proper that God should be solemnly, reverently, and gratefully acknowledged as with one heart and one voice by the whole American people. With that, folks, I wish everyone that watches this video, whether you're in the city or not, a very safe, healthy, family-oriented Thanksgiving. And may the rest of the year be a blessing to you, and may the year ahead be the best ahead. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although I have previously communicated directly, pardon me, with my colleagues, I wanted to publicly congratulate Mayor Dutray, Mayor Pro Tem Rue, and Councilmember Martinez for your win in this last re-election, and I look forward to working more with all of you. Secondly, I want to talk about our housing stock and how we need to do something to assist people excuse me, that need assistance. Recently, I was driving through one of our neighboring cities, and as I was driving down the street, I thought, my God, how they've just let this place go to pot. And I really don't want the city of Montclair to be in that same place. So I really would like to have an item on the agenda within the next meeting or two where we address how we can assist those seniors or low-income residents who need help maintaining their properties. And lastly, having just spent some time out of the country in Greece, Israel, and Turkey and Cyprus, one of the things I learned is how wonderful our lifestyle is here in Southern California. And the best part of going away is coming back and realizing how thankful we should be for the lifestyle that we have, because people around the world do not have the same. So I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Typically what we all do on Thanksgiving is we eat way too much and then lay on the couch and make mooing sounds. But while we're laying on the couch, if we could just give thanks for all that we have. That concludes my comments.
So you're making a request again? What is it again?
For housing rehab. So you may recall, Mr. Mayor, that some years ago, when you and I served on the Neighborhood Partnership of Montclair and rehab, there were funds available from the state to help us do that are no longer, the redevelopment funds are no longer available. But just because we don't have those funds, we can't just shrug our shoulders and let the city go to pot. So what happens is when we allow our city not to be maintained because people can't afford it, then businesses come and they look around trying to figure out where they want to start their new business. And if our city looks like blight, they don't want to come here. So that's two reasons. One is for the members of our community, and also is for the business community. We need to find ways to help those people who can't do it themselves maintain their housing stock.
Okay, well, I think that's more of a workshop, and maybe this ties into this homeless workshop, perhaps, Ed? Perhaps?
Yes, I
Probably
would
the better way to
agree.
do it.
I would agree.
Is, I know when we had the workshop, Code Enforcement Gabe will be here. So that's probably a good place to do it.
As you mentioned that I did have a conversation with Gabe Fundario regarding whether or not he knew what houses, what buildings in the city needed assistance. And because we had, there had been some conversations where there were some funds available, and his response to me was, absolutely, not only do we know where they are, but we can provide the volunteers to help do it. So
Okay.
I look forward to talking to him during that workshop.
You know, I know, there's a lot going on. I know homeless is an issue we have to deal with. Yes, blight is an issue too. And maybe you need two different workshops, because I think we need to have something to talk about neighborhood blights, code enforcement, front yard appearances. So maybe, Ed, we should have two different workshops. One just focus on homelessness, chronic homelessness, and then have a separate one to talk about neighborhood appearance issues, as including what Councilmember Johns is raising. So let's talk about some dates for those in the future. So, all right. Okay, finally, Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. I just want to say my heart really goes out to our members of the LGBTQ plus community following the incident in a nightclub in Colorado. Saturday, I was fortunate to attend an Elton John concert with my husband for one of our very limited date nights. And the thought unfortunately crossed my mind, Elton John's an icon, especially for the LGBTQ community. And I thought, what if we have an attacker come in and try to cause a ruckus because this is an iconic event? And it broke my heart to find out that same exact time that thought crossed my mind, a terrorist walked into a nightclub in Colorado and targeted trans club goers, other members of the LGBTQ community. And I don't know the author, but there is something I read online that says, when speaking about these terrorists, in truth, they are afraid of a world where they're made to feel ashamed, even for a moment, of the hate in their hearts. And that it's so true. It resonated. These terrorists, this one was 22 years old. He walked into a club with hate in his heart, and he murdered people because they were members of the LGBTQ community. And that's why it is so important for us as a city, as leaders of our city, to make sure that everyone feels welcome here. If we need to fly a pride flag outside our city hall, if we need to light up our city hall with rainbow colors, we should do that, because we need to let people know that we are a safe community. We need to stand in solidarity, because if our city does not do it, our neighboring cities will not do it, and people will continue to raise 22-year-olds that have hate in their heart. It's weighing on the LGBTQ community heavily today, and I'm really standing in solidarity with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Obviously, the LGBT community, with the event that took place, is a very tragic event, and it's an event that we should never want to see. And, we should not have groups being targeted. And frankly, there's a lot of hate going on. There's hate going on to the LGBT community experience. There's hate going on to the African American community. There's hate going on to the Asian community. There's hate going on to the Mexican American community. There's hate going on in Washington, D.C. There's hate going on in Ukraine. And it's sad that we as a society have come to this point in 2023. I never thought I'll see this in 2022. I thought we were past all that, where we start targeting people, going after people because we don't like what they are, we don't like their philosophy, we don't like their beliefs. Today we had the invocation here from a Hindu. Who would have ever thought in Montclair the invocation will be given by a Hindu temple? We are a community that we praise all of our cultures here. The LGBT community, the Hispanic community, the Black community, the Asian community, the Jewish community. As a society, we have to love everybody. We have to put our differences aside. We don't have to agree with everybody. But we don't have to engage in physical assaults on people where it comes to you're physically injuring people, or in this case, unfortunately, killing people. The question is still out on these sheriffs who got ran over. Was that hate? I hope not. I hope the guy fell asleep. But maybe it was hate. Another good example out there. We've got to stop hate in this community, in this society, in this country, in this world. So with that, let's go to closed session.